Big ideas start with a spark. At Tassi's, we use that spark to ignite the fire in ourselves and our kids. So with the trust we build and the knowledge we share, we can grow together and stand tall, creating opportunities to advance in business while setting an example for the next generation. Whether you are starting fresh in Portugal or expanding globally, we're here to support each other. This is more than a network. We are a community that sets the examples for the leaders of tomorrow.
We had quite some fun down there, and I'd like to get that on the stage. We're talking about the future of work, and we have 4 experts here, and I had the pleasure to prepare with them. So let's see what we're going to do in the next 30 minutes. My question today, how is work organized today, in your view? Aaron?
It's based on activity as opposed to outcomes. They monitor when you start, when you end. It's not based on how much you're actually managing to produce while you're there for a lot of the work.
The question was how work is organized, right? At the moment, with all the tools at our disposal, quite efficiently, I would say. So I think we can do a lot more than we could just 4 years ago. We're incredibly efficient. We're always talking about replacing, but I think it's much more about like also personal efficiency and being able to communicate really complex things in a really quick, concise way and track intention. What are we trying to do? What are we trying to build? And kind of store that information. Like if you talk a bit about what we do at work, we generate large amounts of data sets, whether it is a conversation, whether it is a report, where it is like financials, whatever it is, it's a large data set. We look at it, we try to retain it. Oftentimes we pretend we know the stuff that we just looked at 50 minutes ago and present it to a whole room. But I think to be able to kind of have this really beautiful tool of storing information and interacting with that data set, what it is, it's been incredible. And let alone all the degenerative stuff that you can use to convey even more abstract ideas in a very clear way. Okay. It's pretty well. It's going well.
Thank you. Ian, what about you? How's your work today?
Well, I think that the operative word, I think I agree with the positive aspects of it, but also I think that the one thing that is on everyone's mind is the uncertainty. And uncertainty's always been in every industry since really work began. Obsolescence is something that has occurred frequently, but it's just occurring at a much more rapid pace now. And in order to look in the future, sometimes you have to look at mirror things in the past, and I work in a very small, obscure industry called Hollywood, and I'm sure nobody's heard of that before. But in Hollywood, it's gone through different iterations of disruption and change. You know, the biggest, more recent one was the switch from streaming, from traditional theaters and television to streaming. And when I started my career at Disney, that was my first job that I ever had out of college. I was working at Walt Disney Feature Animation in their animation division. And when I started off, there was 80% hand-drawn animation. Anyone who knows who's a bit of an animation junkie, they used to draw things on cells and they'd have to move things one bit at a time, and then you transfer it to a transparent layer. And there was 80% that, and then 20% they were starting to introduce digital technology called CGI at the time. And in 4-year time, I was working in the division that was training the people from the traditional side to the digital side. And there was a lot of people who were able to make the transition. They tended to be younger because they're a little bit more flexible. And the old timers, as we say, I'm probably older than most of them now, but the old timers that I viewed as the time, a lot of them refused to change, or they just couldn't adopt the new method of animation. And so they ended up retiring, or they ended up leaving. But when I left 4 years later, it was the flip, it was the reverse. You had 80% CGI animation and then 20% traditional. And then 2 or 3 years after that, traditional is completely gone. So I think now we're looking at those life cycles not being 4 to 6 years. We're now looking at those life cycles being possibly 6 months to 1 year. So I think that anxiety clearly is that if I skill in something, who knows if that's actually going to be relevant again in 6 months or a year. But I think that you need to use the tools that you perceive as being the things that are going to cause your obsolescence to be able to stay ahead of the curve. And it's a lot. It is work. It is a work. You can create a lot of efficiency out of it, but you also have to do more work to make sure that whatever you're doing is currently relevant.
Okay. Pierre, what do you think today?
So I work in large and now small organization because I have my own startup. But I think if I were to take a little bit of a step back, I would say that maybe the last decade, all large organizations try to disrupt themselves and behave like a startup, and all startups try to scale up and behave like a large organization, essentially. And the reason why is they are trying to create innovation and creativity in large organization. They had the skills, but they needed the new relay of innovation, the new relay of growth. Whereas the small organization try to actually scale their businesses. They have a good business, but they want to repeat it and multiply it by 100, by 1,000 times. I think what we are, and kind of echoing what this gentleman has said before is when you think about today, actually now you have tools that actually can take startups into and compete with services of a much larger organization much quicker. The barriers are very different. The model are being changed. And in some ways, the large organization, be careful what you wish for type of, situation is now they can get disrupted so fast and so quickly and so efficiently. I was thinking, when you asked the question, I was thinking about something as, it's a very boring example, and I think somebody talked about regulation, so I talk about certification, security certification. So in the world of SaaS, you have SOC 2 and ISO 28701 and everything like that. I remember a couple of years ago, not long a time ago, I had a product in a large organization to actually, certify, because you need to have that certification for the credibility of the data security and so on and so forth. And I remember that a quote that came back, from one of the not a complex product, but it was like $100,000 or $150,000, 6 months of work. I had to find resources and everything, and literally deploy quite a lot of, not a large capital, but a little bit of effort. Fast forward now, you can get that for not even a tenth of the price, in 6 weeks, and actually have much better, visibility on your process and everything. Why? Because you have AI in the middle that, industrialize the processes, extract information from different places. So you are able to compete at the same level very quickly. We are able to compete at the same level as large organizations. So, and I think that, if to answer your question, that would be my answer. Is the barriers are very much blurred and much more blurred right now, and it's much more of a even level playing field.
Okay. Aaron, let's give it a chance.
I would say we really need to transition from being activity-driven to output-driven. Right now, it's much more you're there for 8 hours a day, you're expected to work for 8 hours, but you may not be accomplishing stuff for that. And what I'm working on, going to engineers and saying we can accomplish in 1 day what right now takes you a week. If they're paid by the hour, that's not necessarily as appealing to them. So showing people that, look what you're able to accomplish so quickly, and making sure we do it in a way that works with their value chain is going to be really critical.
Okay. Pierre, in the preparation you said the word augmented, that's what's happening today. If I ask you about what do you think is going to happen in the future for the work of the students who are sitting here, what should they prepare for? How would work look like?
Good question. I think there are a couple of things that you can take, from different presentation that we saw. I love the fact that the guy from Microsoft showed that resiliency and I think adaptability was kind of the top of the skills that you need to have for the future, which is always a good, it's a proven recipe. It's always been the case, and I think it will always be the case. Things are changing, so it's hard to pinpoint, changing fast. It's hard to pinpoint where work will land. But I definitely, one of my beliefs, and I definitely work in that direction, is that your entity as a human being is not going to be what, fast forward several years, it's not going to be what employer, will hire. They hire you right now for your brain, your knowledge, your skills, your experience. I truly believe that, you will be augmented by, an AI, so you can duplicate, your capabilities to impact. You still are in control of, as was said, in the student panel, you still are in control as a human of the creative part of the ignition, essentially, but having the ability to impact, much bigger and much further, than what you can do with just your two hands will be key. And I think the latest development, I'm surprised we haven't talked about, Claude Code, or what is the new name?
Co-work.
Yeah, not
Opus,
is called.
Opus. Opus.
Yeah, as well. There are tools that are going out right now that really, allows you to augment yourself like right away. And I think that's, that's to me that's the direction. Is if you can almost like you have your digital twin, that sits next to you, that enables you to do much more.
Okay, because Aaron, you said in the preparation, I'm 10 times faster right now. Can you share how this works and what the future will bring there?
Yes. So, I personally, Solvit, Claude, all Gemini, for instance, it's a matter of you don't ask the AI you don't necessarily just ask the AI to code it for you. You ask the AI to explain what it's doing while it's doing. You certainly spend a while, you try to solve the problem yourself and sketch out the solution. You give it to the AI and make sure it goes through each individual step, and then only then do you go through it and you run the code and you make sure you have everything that's working. Actually, what Katerina said before, integration without independence is a vulnerability. That very much applies to AI. You need to be able to integrate it with your work, but you need to be able to operate independently of it. You need to be able to figure out where it made a mistake, but it can automate all of the boring stuff, like just typing takes a while, accidentally putting a comma instead of a semicolon, etc. So catching those issues, it's not going to make those mistakes. It's going to make a different set of mistakes, but usually you can be the ones who catch that.
Okay. Milan, you said there's a huge difference to 10 years ago when you have marketing stuff in general. Mm-hmm. You check how this could work in the market, and you shared something about how you do it today.
So growing up in the Netherlands at an early age, I started with film. And back then, before me starting in it, like it was very expensive. You couldn't get a camera, couldn't touch it, couldn't rent it. It was out of this world, couldn't use it. Then Canon came with a camera and made it you could film on a film camera. So for the first time, you had like the cinematic look, quote unquote, on this camera. So I saw that, and then you saw computers, the price coming down. So I saw that. I was like, okay, it's interesting. You can build a career. You can build companies off of that, the technology. Now you see it matured so much that it's almost saturated, that whole market, and it's almost disappeared because of it. But I always had to kind of look beyond the horizon. So when I saw AI come in, I was like, okay, so what is this thing and how can you use it? And it took a really long time for that cycle to happen with computers and with that technology and this kind of all this stuff and phones or whatever. And it kind of plateaued. They're removing stuff, adding features, but it's kind of like it's a glass plate with stuff happening in it. It's so fast. It changes every single day. And what was kind of a nice way to work 2 years ago doesn't make sense now. So to give you an example, I think the biggest impact it had on my career, my day-to-days, we started recording conversations, large meetings with groups, just alignment sessions and that type of stuff to figure out, okay, what is the project about? What are the objectives? What are we doing? And those things tend to, some people take notes, that's it, and we kind of use whatever we can retain, we use. We started storing all of the information, doing loads of online stuff and building a database of kind of knowledge. So it's all centralized. Everybody can pull from it, and whatever you need to create is always created into the right context. So that's one simple way. And when I started doing this, I had to find a workaround. I had to go into Google, download all the stuff, upload it, create my own ChatGPT at the time. But that program is changing in front of our very eyes all the time. I think just yesterday something new was released. I think Google Genius, and now you can walk through worlds and stuff. Like this yesterday. Like I just looked at my phone. That's how quickly this thing is going. So you have to kind of feel out for yourself what is my stack? But you always have to be curious and learning and kind of try out some new stuff easily. And I think most of the time, like now, when they add a lot of AI into other stuff that you might already use, and you really have to be mindful, like, how am I using it? Does it help? Does it help me? Well, we talked a lot about critical thinking. Does it help my critical thinking? Does it extend the compute that I naturally have? Because that's kind of how I see it. I can't retain all those conversations that I'm having with people, but I can keep it in this little bubble of context, and I can access it all the time. I can ask it information. But the same thing about if you want to do market analysis, like there's so much information out there online, but you can do a deep search, contextualize everything, and then put it into the model as well, match it with your kind of what you want to do, combine those things, and kind of have access to kind of your own reasoning, your own ideas. So you keep feeding it ideas until you're like satisfied, and then you keep working with that. But there's also a thing called content rot. If you feed it too much information, I don't know if people recognize this pattern, but it becomes less and less useful. And it's kind of because there's too much, and it doesn't know which information to hang on to, which I might not be true. I don't know, because
that's definitely true.
Okay, because for me it's like a vibe. So it's like, this vibe is off. Like I'm moving on to the next one. So it's interesting that all these things are kind of like it's ones and zeros. It's data, but it's also feeling. I mean, sometimes I ask a question and I get like this format. I mean, now it's a little less than back in the day, but it did a formatting, and I was like, I don't like the way it's doing this, and I couldn't get it right, so I had to do it again. Just close this off, get a new one, and then it did it like in a different vibe, and then it's okay. I like this vibe, which is a weird way to interact with software or hardware. It's strange.
Okay, thank you, Ian. The future of the Guild of the Creative Directors. How do you see that?
Yeah, the guild he's referring to is the Directors Guild of America, and I have opinions about that I probably don't want to have on camera. I have a lot of colleagues that are very high level directors, and my mentor was one of the people on the negotiating committee for the last round of new union negotiations against the studios, and I feel like there's an opportunity missed in addressing artificial intelligence, and instead I think that there's a bit of hubris with creative people that they feel like whatever they're doing, and for the longest time it's true. The creative is king, and we have this statement that says content is king. And yes, to an extent, but content is so ubiquitous now, and it's so much easier to make that it's maybe demoted to prince or duke status. In terms of the fact that there's just so much of it out there. And so now it's really the marketing engines that are studios. The studios are essentially just marketing and distribution platforms. And that's, I think, what the future is going to be. I feel like they still can, but I think they need to define union rules around how AI is used. And I do feel like the creative human engine of it, AI can create incredible stuff. But it doesn't lack the critical skills necessary to distinguish when I create a spreadsheet with a bunch of AI. Give me a list of ideas for something. It'll give me a whole list of ideas, and there'll be a gem in there, one that I might not have ever thought of. But the difference between, I think, the human curator on this and the AI is I can identify the diamond in the muck. And AI still can't do that. It's able to churn out a whole bunch of information. It's getting better at doing these things, but it still can't make the distinction between a bunch of stuff that it spit out and which components of it are useful. But I think that creativity in the creative space, my optimism, if I'm going to speak both optimistically and pessimistically, I think what I said before is a bit pessimistic, but now the optimistic side is I feel like the future really is still up to the humans. And I think that humans' boundaries need to push yet again. There's been always movements in technological progression that force humans to do things better. And the way that I would describe what's happening to this industry right now is what happened to photography 170 years ago. Painters used to they made their living doing portrait paintings and realistic landscapes, almost photorealistic stuff. Then as soon as the camera came out, the camera could do it instantly without you having to sit in a chair for 5 days in a row with the same expression on your face, without wearing the same clothes to have someone paint you. You could just do it very, very fast and do it at scale. And so instead of destroying the painting profession, arguably what it did is it actually made painting move to the next level. because that's when the Impressionists, that's when all the classic masters came out. Probably the greatest movement in two-dimensional painting history occurred right after the invention of the photograph. And so I think that we're looking at something like that right now. What I'm seeing in art galleries is three-dimensional artwork. I'm seeing artwork that cannot be generated by a simple prompt. And so you're seeing things that have some tactile elements to them, or things that currently AI can't replicate. So I think that the future really is the observation of what AI can do very, very quickly, and being able to figure out how you can bring whatever that is to the next level so you can distinguish yourself from all the masses of stuff that's being produced. Still to this day, you go to Venice and you will spend a premium to buy a Murano glass thing that's imperfect, that has bubbles in it, maybe even little cracks, but it was created by hand and you could see them doing the whole glass blowing thing. You'll spend a lot of money for that. You could get the exact same thing at IKEA, and 5 billion of them that are actually more perfect, but we're paying for that thing that was created by hand by a human being. So I think that we're still going to have a craving for that, and I think now that AI can do these incredible things, where does human creativity go next? And now we have to think outside of the scope of what we thought was creative before and go to the next level. So I'm hoping we see the new age of human impressionism, so to speak, but across multiple industries.
Okay. Pierre, you said you work in a small company, but 4 bigger companies. If students are interested to work in corporate, big organizations, how do you prepare them today for AI-driven or AI-augmented? And what's the future of work there?
At least not now. I don't think you prepare for work on large or small. I think you prepare on the outcome that you want to bring to. I just want to maybe complete that question and comment on what you said. I think there's a lot of, it's super interesting because as well, out of constraint, usually creation and innovation, comes down. That's the reality. But we talk about the future of work, and as much as we would all want to be, a Picasso or Michelangelo, we're not. The majority, we're not. We are here to actually accomplish a task, that is in some ways, that as part of that we're very repeatable. Okay, and the question is, if you look at the number, there is a large number of less creative job, and there is a minority who have a high creative job, essentially. The high creative job, when you have a lot of input, is I think it's not only a question of AI or not AI. It's not only a question of replaceable. It's not even a question of cycle, economic cycle or not. These jobs usually you always do well because of your capabilities. The question I think is more not interesting, but maybe more worth asking is what about the rest? What about people who blue collar no, but white collar job, middle management, and below. What happened there? And I think that's the real question, around the world. The next 5 years, I think we're good, but the next 10 years is I think, it's questionable. I work we had the 3 phases in the Microsoft thing. I work definitely in the phase 3. So we work with deploying agents, as part of a worker. We always tend to say we have digital, workers, digital engineers, and we say that our team is 40 people, 10 human, and we have 30, agents that does the work, for us, And when we say the work, it's not a cursor or anything like that. It's the ship features, end to end. We say we have a client who wants to do that, this is our tech stack, they're aware of our stack, they're aware about everything, go to work. And we end up with the day after a full feature deployed, tested, QA'd, and everything ready to be shipped, So that is a true differentiator for us, but I think for the workforce as well. So there is a question, about how do you prepare the next generation, It is undeniable that the work will change, It is undeniable that, you should absolutely experiment with these tools. It is undeniable that, we are at the very, very, very beginning of a large revolution. And the engineer part of me says, it's going to be for the better of humanity, and mankind, essentially. But there is definitely transformation. There will be a shock, and it will be, it will have to be absorbed. So the new generation, what do we tell them? Be curious, test, learn from this tool, understand the weakness as well, because their weakness is our strength, essentially. And the ethics part of it, what can work, what works, what doesn't work, but there is undeniable, and it's undeniable to me at least, that it's not a question of large or small workplace, it's a question of, how do you place yourself within the work ecosystem.
Okay. What do you think TASIS has to do today to prepare these future workers for good work in the future?
2 words, I would say, because I was about to mention it, I would say, and the opposite is the teacher, the schools and everything. Embrace it as well, I can make a parallel, at work. There is, I think now the wave is kind of going back, is going away, but the initial reaction, of ChatGPT and the advancement of ChatGPT in many large organizations was to forbid access to it. They didn't want they didn't trust employees to load, they didn't want, employees to load, sensitive information. The exact reaction of that is actually they created something even worse. They created shadow AI, where actually people do that because they have to do it, they want to do it, they see the performance, but they do that from their phone, from their own computer and everything, completely outside of the control of the organization. You embrace, you control. You forbid, you literally leave it to the open space and, without any control. So in few words is, at least for schools and everything, they should embrace as well that, understand, the weakness, and make sure that, there is still, a lot of creativity, a lot of, kind of tinkering with it and leaving space for that, but generally, embrace it because that's the future. Mm-hmm. It's undeniable.
Ian?
I would experience, whether that's at an institutional level, talking about academics or scholastic institutions, or just in general advice, is just experience life, because I think the more real life experiences you have, the better. I would say that we're entering a world where it is becoming harder to distinguish what's real and what's not real through our phones and through our mass media. So the only experiences are real interactions with real people. So it's kind of the inverse of immersing yourself in technology and in your phone, and instead experience what real things are, because that's the one distinction that AI can't replicate, is what you actually experience of your own testing and experimenting tactile things. And also it's fun and exciting. It gets you out of your headspace. You're not thinking the way somebody else thinks through an algorithm, whether you're looking at a social media feed or watching popular entertainment. You are experiencing your own life, and those become the best stories, those become the best perspectives that you can bring to whatever it is that you're doing.
Milan, what do you think?
I think TASIS is already doing an amazing job. We're having these conversations, kids are present. This is as much, if not more, their technology than it is ours. Ours goes through a lens of experience and a long time of doing things a certain way. They step into it fresh. Whether you like it or not, they'll adapt to it. I think as much, if you open it up in the classroom, it's also about asking them questions like, how does this work? How do you use it? And I think we'll be surprised with their answers as well. And it could be very beneficial. So talk to your kids about what they do and how they use it. I think they oftentimes use it very responsibly, and it definitely belongs in the classroom, because then you can control the narrative, you can control how to use it, do it responsibly. It's just like traffic. You can't say stay inside, there are cars out there. You have to go experience it and in a safe and controlled manner, and this is perfect for it.
Okay. Aaron?
Yes, encouraging people, students, to develop their own things creatively, to experiment, to not just to recreate something that someone else has done or memorize facts, but much more so go out and present and learn to present things in your way and how you think about them, which is often unique.
Okay. All right, time's up. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Cheers.